All right. So we're just going to go to the book and pull out a few of these equations. Again, write down. Watch how I write down the steps and and listen to the way I ask myself the questions. Okay? Because that's the key. If you can talk yourself through it, then you can solve any equation. Because your calculator can do 49 divided by 7 or whatever it is, but you need to make sure that you know when to do what. Okay? And to make sure you write down everything that you need to write. So let's just go to the book and get one of the equations. So we'll start with the C one. So we have 3x plus 7 equals 19. So as we go, I want you answering and asking and answering the questions. So first of all, the most important thing you can ever do is find out what kind of problem you're dealing with. Because if you don't know what kind of problem you're dealing with, you don't know how to solve it, right? But there's one thing up here that tells me what kind of problem this is. What is it? The equal symbol. The equal symbol tells me that this thing is an equation. Okay? But there are literally an infinite variety of equations. And you're going to learn a lot of them. So you need to know when what type is what. And this one is a special kind of equation because I don't see any exponents up there, right? Which makes it what kind of equation? Linear. Now, if you found yourself having trouble with that, write these things off to the side. I know it's an equation because of the equal symbol, and I know it's linear. You don't have to, but if you need that reinforcement about when to ask what question, just write it off to the side as you're doing your homework, and it'll make it so much easier on yourself, okay? Now, so I'm going to go to my steps for solving a linear equation, and it says the first thing I need to do are look for what? Brackets. Now, keep in mind that even though it's not there, it's just as important to ask that question even if they're not there. Because if you suddenly just start doing what you see, what's going to happen is when other things do appear, you're not going to be ready for them and you'll make mistakes. Okay? So ask yourself every possible question, right? Remember that example I used of walking down the street. Okay? That's Bowen Street. That's not the street I want. That's Lambton Key. That's not the street I want. That's whatever. That is the street I want. Sorry, I couldn't remember any other streets. Okay. No brackets. What do I look for next? Fractions. Do I have any fractions? No. And we're not going to have any fractions in this homework. We're going to do that next week when we start class again. Okay? What do I look for next? Like terms on the same side. And notice, so I'm abbreviating because you don't want to have to rewrite your whole notes, but do make sure it makes sense. Like terms on the same side. Well, over here, I have two terms, right? What kind of term is 3x? Variable term or an x term? Good. What kind of term is positive 7? A constant. Are x terms and constants like terms? No. And on this side, all I have is one constant term, so obviously not going to happen. Now, 7 and 19 are like terms, but am I going to combine them right now? Why not? They're not on the same side, right? That would mean not combining, but moving. Okay? Good. Next, what do I need to do? Variable terms on one side? How many variable terms do I have in this equation, though? Just one. Well, then I don't need to move it. If there's only one, it's on one side. Does that make sense? Now, what if I had plus 4x over here? Now I have 2, so one of them would have to move. Do you see the difference? But in this case, all I have is 1, so it's not going to move. Then, next, constants on the other. How many constant terms do I have? 2. Well, that tells me that one of them has to move. Because otherwise, I would only have one. If they were already on the same side, I would have already combined them. So you'd only have one. So if you have 2 of something, one of them has to move. Now think about it. Which side are my variables on? The right or the left? The left. Which means my numbers have to go which way? To the right. Exactly. This thing always tells your numbers what to do. So if it's on the left, the numbers need to go to the right. So which number do I need to move? The positive 7. All right? That is the number one question for people who for equations, no matter what level. How do I know which thing to move? Well, that tells you what to move. The x is not moving, so your number has to move away from it. Now we're going to move that, guys. We're going to move that plus 7 by doing the opposite. What is the opposite of plus 7? And I can subtract 7 all day long as I do it equally, which means not only that side, but what? The other side. And yes, I want to see subtract 7 on your paper. Got it? I will mark you down if you don't. Even if you can do it in your head. All right? Now, over here, the 7 minus 7 just makes 0. It goes away, right? Which leaves me just 3x. But over here, what's 19 minus 7 going to make? 12. But my x is not completely by itself yet, right? Which is the whole goal. So what's the last step? Divide both sides by the coefficient. What is the coefficient in this case? A 3. Because 3x literally means 3 times x. And the opposite of multiply by 3 is divide by 3. So remember, you're always doing the opposite. So we'll divide not just one side by 3, but what? Both sides. Over here, 3 divided by 3 makes a 1. But do I need to write 1x? No. 1x is the same as just plain old x. And on this side, 12 divided by 3 is, and you're done. Because your x is all by itself. Okay? Now, I know that many of you could have worked that out in your head. Yes, I see that. But don't worry about that. I want to see the process because as they get bigger, you're not going to be able to work these out in your head. Okay? And showing your work is never more confusing. If you want to subtract 7 and you write down subtract 7, that is not more confusing than doing it in your head. That doesn't make any sense. Right? If you see something written, okay? All right, so for example, here we go. I want you to copy the words to the Declaration of Independence. That's good, but not. Okay? So, you don't know it, so you can't do it, right? But if you saw it written down, could you rewrite it? There you go. Okay? So, be careful. Don't trick yourself into believing something that's not true, guys. Come on. All right. How's that look? Okay? If you do this little bit, boy, will you be miles ahead. Okay? And will you have to do it forever? No. But when you don't remember, if you don't memorize it, until you've memorized it, you need to. All right, here we go. Let's look at another one. Okay. Look at J. Ready? 6 minus 3x equals 0. Okay? So, just put that on notebook paper. All right, here we go. First things first. What kind of problem is it? How do you know? Is it linear? How do you know? No exponent on your x. Good. Okay, so any brackets? Fractions. Are there any like terms on either side to combine? No. How many variable terms do I have? So is it moving? Now be careful. How many constant terms do I have? 2. 0 is a constant, right? So one of them needs to move. Yeah? So I want to get the number away from my x. So am I going to move the 0 or the 6? The 6. And it doesn't have anything in front of it, which means you know that it's what? Positive. So what's the opposite of plus 6? And I'm going to subtract 6 from where? Both sides. Over here it simply subtracts away. Gives me 3x. 0 minus 6 is negative 6. X is not completely by itself, though. How is that negative 3 connected to my x? What operation is holding them together? Multiplication, and the opposite of multiply is divide. Now, what am I going to divide by if I want to get that x completely by itself? Negative 3. There you go. There you go. Now, let me show you why. I need to get rid of the negative and the 3. Right? If I divided negative 3x by positive 3, that would get rid of the 3, but it leaves me negative x. Is that what I want? Nope, remember, I want that x to be completely by itself. So you divide by whatever's there, including the sign. Okay? Negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 6 divided by 3 is, and there you go. So x equals 2. And what that means is, if you put x right there and worked it out, you would get 0 equals 0, which is a true statement. Right? Okay? All right, let's look at some more. Okay, actually, let's let you do one. Let's let you do letter K. Okay? So you're going to do 8 plus 13x equals 34. You've got 2 minutes. Go.